Hey everyone, today I'm with Heidi Dodd with Harter, Larson, and Dodd here in O'Fallon. Heidi's a estate planning attorney. How are you?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me. So I couldn't help but think of you to discuss everything that's happening with COVID-19, with this pandemic, with the shutdown. Obviously, you've been an estate planning attorney for a long time here in the area, but you also have you also specialize in kind of two areas that I think are more, well, not think, I know are more likely to be impacted by this, right? And that are those with special needs as well as those with the elderly. So, um, what are your thoughts on all of this? And what do you think are some things that people should be worried about or considering?
Yeah. Um, my kind of general theme is as my office and I've kind of been adapting like everybody else to this. We are considered an essential service. So we can be in the office, but we are working from home as much as possible. But as an office and just a citizen, I think the theme that runs through my head is getting your affairs in order.
Yeah.
So this is now more than ever the time to consider estate planning if you haven't at this stage in the game, or to dust off those documents that you do have,
Mhm.
to kind of get them out and to look them over, especially those advanced directives regarding healthcare power of attorney and kind of, there's all this buzz with regards to ventilators and to end of life. And so I think it's important to get those documents out and to review them if you have them. And this is a busy season for our office anyways, because when it's tax time, that's when people pull out their documents. They're looking at their
Right.
taxes. They're looking at all those things they stick in the safe or that special drawer at home. And so I am noticing a volume of calls, just kind of like, hey, I want to review my documents, because you want to know those people that you've appointed to step in and make decisions for you. If you can't make those medical
Mhm.
decisions or end of life decisions, you want to know that they're still the right people,
Right.
and you want to know that they know your wishes. Sometimes parents will go out and get all of these documents put in place, but kind of forget to tell the kids. They'll just park it in that special drawer at home along with your documents, right?
Yeah.
Here's my financial advisor, here's my attorney, here's my accountant.
Right.
And so I think it's important that people sit down and review those documents and make sure that they still have the right people named.
For sure. And we all have a little bit more free time with us right now. And
Yeah.
I know most people are not thinking, what would be great? And revamp my estate plan. Let's take a look at it. Or I want to use this time to put together an estate plan. But
Right.
the reality is it's an important part of our life that we need to do. And it's just human nature that when we go through chaos, we have a tendency to look at what we can do to improve. And in my world, you should always be looking at your portfolio, right? You should always be looking at your financial plans. But for a lot of people, it's just, am I making money? And as long as they're making money, they don't care. But then once
Mm-hmm.
they start to lose money, they start to reevaluate situations. So obviously, this is a scare for most people. So it's a great for all of us. So it's a great time
Mm-hmm.
to take the time to put together an estate plan. So
Yeah.
you talked earlier about ventilation. Would you mind elaborating on that and how that works with COVID-19?
Right. So I think where it's coming into play in my area of the practice, and certainly it's a case by case situation what people's wishes are, but we're seeing the questions come up in the healthcare power of attorney. So that's when you assign somebody to make those decisions for you if you're not able to make them for yourself. End of life sustaining decisions. And currently, the statutory healthcare power of attorney in Illinois kind of gives you two choices, which is the quality of my life is more important than the length of my life. If I'm unconscious and my doctor believes that I will not wake up or recover or have an ability to think or communicate, reasonably with my loved ones, my friends, my family, then I may not want treatments that prolong my life, right? But you're giving the agent the decision to the
The
authority to
discretion.
make those decisions, right? The
Yeah.
discretion,
Yeah.
or the second choice really is staying alive at all costs, regardless of how painful, regardless of how long I'm on those machines, regardless of the cost. And you're shaking your head no, because 99.9% of us say that is not the option I want. So where
Right.
I'm seeing kind of COVID and the ventilator come in, that's obviously when these were drafted by legislators and individuals in the field, in the healthcare field, because usually hospitals work diligently on these healthcare power of attorneys. They have a lot of opinions on what they want them to say. I'm not sure we all were thinking ventilator. When I have these conversations with my clients, that wasn't usually the conversation. Most people think, ooh, I don't want to be kept on machines forever, right? And
Right.
that's why you were shaking your head, and I don't either. But just as recent as this weekend, I said to my husband, you know, I know I chose the quality of my life was more important than the length of my life, but for the love of God, if you can get me on a ventilator and there's hope that I will recover, I want you to try it.
Yeah.
I mean, don't leave me on there for 3 years in a coma, but I absolutely want you to. But we wouldn't have had that conversation until COVID.
Can I
And
say that
so,
I can't help but laugh, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I can't help but laugh at the idea. I'm envisioning you and Jeff on the back deck. You're sharing a glass, you're sharing a bottle of wine,
yeah,
and you're like sharing jokes, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Heidi pops up with, "Hey Jeff, by the way," right? Is that how it went down?
pretty much. Actually, you know us too well. Yes. So, and he kind of was like, "Where's this coming from?" I'm like, "Listen, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Because we didn't think about that stuff. And there's a lot of what ifs out there. Is the vent good? Is it not good? Is it helping? And that sort of thing. So, I mean, obviously, the medical field are truly frontline heroes, and they're figured out as they go too. But my theory was, you go with what let's go with the norm. If the norm is we're putting her on a vent, give me a shot at this. But I think the key for clients who have these documents in place, but also for individuals who need to get them in the place, you need to have the conversation. Start having the conversation with your family members. Because, like, I don't know what you would want. I mean, does your family know what you would want? It's not something you have at the dinner table every night. It's not a conversation you have.
Not most of us.
Right, right. And so, and that's why obviously I kind of sucker punched Jeff coming out of nowhere with that. But that's obviously what's on my brain more than anything,
Yeah,
and
that's
the
what you
questions
do.
that I'm getting. Right, it's kind of what we do. So I think it's important to just start having the conversations and sharing with people what your thoughts are on end of life. I mean, some people, I mean, we're in an area blessed, I feel like, to not be overwhelmed. The
Without a doubt.
hospitals aren't overwhelmed right now. I mean, it sounds weird to say we're blessed, but we're still experiencing it, but not at the rate that New York and some of the bigger cities are. And so, but some people are dealing with I have colleagues out on the East Coast that are dealing with, like, you're not getting proper funerals. You're not getting, I mean, and here the same thing. I mean, clients who are passing, or loved ones, they're not getting to say goodbye in the hospital. They're not getting to view the body. At least in my experience, I don't know what the norm is, but that's what my clients are sharing with me. They're not getting to say goodbye, whether it was COVID or not. Unfortunately, everyone is losing that opportunity. So
Sure.
it's so important to have those conversations in advance. And also, just kind of like, it's kind of morbid, but do you want to be cremated? And maybe there's not going to be a choice right now. I don't know. Or do you want to be buried? A lot of us don't have that conversation either.
No.
Especially at our age when we're younger.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come up. You don't want to think about it. Your parents are still in their 70s, 80s. You're barely having the conversations with them. So it's important that we think internally about what we want and share that with somebody we trust, that we would put in that position of authority to make those decisions for us. But it's also important that you start having those conversations with your parents.
Yeah.
And your grandparents. So yeah, it's not just about us. It's about, what do they want? Hey, mom, dad, do you have these documents in place?
Yeah, I would say I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of kind of focusing on myself and my family and my immediate family, and not necessarily on my parents, or
Right.
grandma or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
So obviously what I'm hearing is two things. If you don't have an estate plan, now's a great time to begin getting that in order. And then also, if you haven't looked at yours in a while, it's important to dust that off, as well as, and just make sure what you said 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it might be, is still what you want today, and that everyone's aware of your wishes. Is that
Absolutely.
fair? Yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything regarding the CARES Act that has impacted your world that you want to talk about?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, most of it's focused on the, kind of grants and the funding and keeping businesses afloat. But obviously, there's many tentacles in it. The tentacle that I feel like has affected our practice kind of focuses around the stimulus checks. Obviously, I serve mostly elderly population, so those individuals are getting those checks. But I also handle a lot of decedents' estates, and so what we're seeing is, I've had a couple clients reach out and say, "Hey, I'm in the middle of administering. They're the executor for their dad's estate or what have you, and they're receiving checks in the decedent's name." I've advised them to return those checks immediately. So there is on the outside of the envelope, you'll see an actual box, wrong address, return. If this, recipient is deceased, return. So we're just checking that box and sending it right back.
It's an interesting situation where I can see some people thinking, well, yeah, where are they going to know? Are they going to catch me? But
Right.
it's fraud, right? I mean,
It's fraud. Absolutely. It's
I know,
fraud. And
yeah,
those checks are intended to keep afloat the living. And
right.
it's also, but obviously for the government to push out all of the programs that they're pushing out and all of the funding that they're pushing out, some things are going to get missed.
Hmm.
And, because of the way COVID hit, those tax returns haven't been filed. So they don't know that they may not be clicking that this gentleman's deceased yet, because we haven't filed the final 1040, which was due April 15th, which has been extended till July 15th.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
part of that's just, they're stuck in that, or the individual prior to death, they were, because my client said, well, they were alive in 19. Yeah, but the check is meant to stimulus for the economy, getting us up and running. So we're just returning those checks.
for sure. And that makes
Better to be
perfect
safe
sense.
than sorry.
What's that?
Better to be safe than sorry.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And just real quickly on that, because we're talking about the CARES Act and individuals that are elderly, is that one thing that's important for everyone to remember is that couple things. In December, the Secures Act moved the date for required minimum distributions from 70 and a half to 72.
Mm-hmm.
Then the CARES Act said there are no required minimum distributions for 2020. As of now, 2021, they're going to start back up, but that presents a unique opportunity for individuals who don't need their required minimum distribution. They're used to taking it and they deposit it into their taxable account, which I hope is a living trust account and not just a joint tenants with rights of survivorship, right?
Right.
So if you're used to being taxed on it, one thing to consider, this is not a recommendation, as I don't know anything about the people listening, is to convert it. Just simply convert it to a Roth IRA. You're going to pay taxes anyway. So just a little quick thing for people
That's
to
a
talk
great
about or
tip.
think about. So
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's important, especially a lot of my clients since the first of the year have been asking me about the Secures Act and Secure Act, and then that's a great tip. Thank you for not having to necessarily take your RMD. And you said that affects both the inherited IRA as well as the traditional,
no,
right?
that's a great point. Yeah, it is both inherited IRAs, it is traditionals. Now, if you have annuitized an annuity that's inside of what we call a qualified account,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to take it because you have a contract with the annuity company. But if it's your traditional inherited IRA invested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, things of that nature, then yeah, for this year, you do not have a required minimum distribution. And again, whether or not you're over 72 or it's inherited from a non-spouse.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing on that, though, maybe a little bit too deep, but qualified charitable distributions are still allowed. So even though you do not have a required minimum distribution, if you use your standardized deduction, you can still take money from your IRA if the check is made payable directly to the qualified charity. That's called a qualified charitable distribution. So just something else for people to consider. Are there any local resources, Heidi, that you'd like to kind of lead people to that you think are great places for people to gather information about anything, including COVID-19?
Great, it's a great question. So I'm still very much supporting, the senior centers that are able to stay open. They're trying to keep those Meals on Wheels. They are a critical access point for our clients, because they're still dropping off those meals at the front door. They're checking in. Are they answering the door? Are they okay? Have they I mean, so that Meals on Wheels and those local senior centers are critical because they are boots on the ground, in my opinion, to
Yeah.
know how those seniors are doing. And then I always recommend supporting it's Age Smart in our area, your local area agency on aging, because they are just the hub of resources, whether that's elder abuse, whether that's Meals on Wheels, whether that's getting just connecting the senior for questions regarding Medicare or getting a certain benefit. And so they're federally funded, they're state funded, and they're, in my opinion, a great hub and a great place to start. I mean, I think an interesting trend we may see out of this, certainly from an elder law attorney's perspective, is hoping that the feds and the state will see keeping our seniors in place at home is better for them,
Mm-hmm.
and it's cheaper for the state and the federal, right? It's more effective, it's more efficient, and everybody wants to stay. They want to age in place if they can.
Mm-hmm.
And so those local senior centers who are also funded by Age Smart and the area agencies on aging, you know, that's your hub of where people can turn in crisis, at least to call to say, I don't know what to do with mom or dad, or, you know, something's happened, or we need to get some help in. Those are the kind of agencies that are just pinnacle in this, as to, you know, giving you a good sense of direction on where to call next and what to do next for our seniors and those who are most vulnerable.
For sure, for sure. Well, that's awesome. You know, so much great information. Hopefully everyone takes this to heart and uses this as an opportunity to reevaluate your estate plan you already have or put one in place. So I'm going to be sharing Heidi's contact information if anyone would like to reach out to her. Thanks again for joining me, Heidi. Heidi, this was great.
Yeah, thanks again, Mike. Stay
Thanks.
well.
See ya. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.